this country has the most retail space compared to any other country. We keep hearing that millennials and Gen Z love shopping on their phones and online. People say going into stores can be laborious and they can't find the right things. And in 2019, it's been a record year of store closures. So I guess my first question is, why would anyone want to open a store in this environment? And Amish, I'm throwing that to you.
Yeah, I think a lot of the things you said, by the way, thanks for having me. A lot of the things you said are absolutely true. And I think it's become sort of an established school of thought. There's empirical evidence and data now to actually illustrate that, stores or physical retail, if you will, there's a number of advantages to it, if you will. So yes, while it is an omni-channel world out there, people discover in stores, they discover online. Where they decide to buy is certainly it's sort of a personalized shopping experience. But as it relates to the stores, some of the top advantages are, it's a little bit more of a profitable customer that you can acquire through the physical channel. Certainly the channel results in sort of lower return rates. Like you can inherently touch and feel and experience the product and the brand. And when you can do that, obviously, you don't have to necessarily take back a bunch of boxes that you just received from whatever brand you just acquired the product from. And I think the other thing is just, there's credibility development, if you will, right? When a brand moves into brick and mortar, it certainly creates sort of this really nice halo to your online business in that respective market, and it creates credibility for the brand.
And so Daniella, you run BaubleBar, and can you explain a little bit about this business? But then also, I know when you started, you said that you wanted to go into brick and mortar, even though you started online. So can you explain why that was the case?
Sure. So we are a data-driven fashion and accessories brand focused on bringing the right trends to market at the right time, and we do that through a variety of different channels. So our core brand, BaubleBar, we started online only through BaubleBar.com, which obviously we still have today. And then about 2 years into starting the brand, we expanded into wholesale. We are now sold at a wide range of wholesalers in 200 stores across 17 different countries, places like Nordstrom, Bloomingdale's, Selfridges, Harvey Nichols, Le Bon Marché. And then 2 years ago, we actually launched a sister brand called Sugar Fix by BaubleBar, which is exclusively available on Target.com and in all of Target doors. So we are sold in a wide variety of different channels. When we were first starting the brand, Amy and I really talked about what we felt was missing as customers and shoppers in our shopping experience, and really wanted BaubleBar to address all of our pain points as consumers. At the same time, we also really recognized that as consumers, we liked both. We sometimes really liked shopping online, and sometimes we really liked physically walking into a store and trying things on and putting them on and deciding, what we wanted to purchase. So we started the company with a mind towards really having multiple distribution channels, and we were excited that we got to start moving into one of those through wholesale, 2 years after starting.
Great, and we had a chart that just showed e-commerce sales going up, and so I think it goes to the idea that conventional wisdom is that everyone does love to shop online, but there is still this annoyance about the store. So I wanted to get to the heart of that. Like, is the store model broken? Because it still seems like people want to go to or you guys still want to enter the store.
Yeah. It's interesting. I'm not sure what about it is broken. I think that there has been a lot of newer brands that have seen a lot of success in retail, whether that's through wholesale, whether that's through owned retail and their own stores. And I think it's about finding a way to connect with the customer authentically. I think that what a lot of new brands have done is have recognized that as we move towards a world where people are consuming a lot of content through social media platforms, people are really looking for, a visual and an aesthetic that doesn't necessarily have that super polished, retouched veneer. People want to connect with brands that they feel are an authentic representation of who they are, their values, their aesthetics, the things that they, want to achieve in their own personal look and everyday life. So I think that those brands have done a really great job building authentic connections with customers. And I think that those customers then are happy to engage with those brands, whether that's digitally or in retail.
Okay. So David, you help brands and move into the retail space, essentially.
That's right.
So can you explain a little how people love the digital experience? How do you bring that to life in brick and mortar to make that a frictionless and seamless experience?
Yeah. Jordyn, thanks for having us. And so b8ta was really founded with the idea that there are products across many categories that really customers react to when they can get the product in their hands, they can touch and feel and try it, demo it, try it on. And so we really started to open stores as marketplaces of these products. And so today we operate the b8ta concept. By the end of the year, it'll be 25 stores across the country. Those are marketplaces, experiential marketplaces for innovation products, smart home, consumer electronics. We've taken the same concept and we're applying it to the toy world with our partners at Toys R Us. And we're doing it now. We've just opened Forum, which is a concept store in Los Angeles on Melrose. And it's our foray into fashion and the accessories world. And what we have found is that, it's an incredible opportunity for the brands to enter experiential retail in a way that is right-sized to where they are on their journey as a business. And so it started with a lot of small makers in smart home and consumer electronics. I mean, that's where b8ta really started from. Mm-hmm. And so these are companies that were, two people with an Indiegogo or a Kickstarter project that wanted to bring a product to life. And what we've been able to do is give them a platform in the form of a store experience to be able to get that product into a consumer's hands. And for me, the way I think about it is there's really 4 elements of experience when it comes to retail. And there's 4 elements of experiential retail. It's got to be sensory. It's got to have storytelling. It has to be service-oriented, and it has to be seamless. And so we allow you to touch, feel, try, demo, try on our products. We allow the brands to tell their story through interactive digital displays and other elements in the store. We have our beta testers and our other specially trained associates in our different categories, and they have product knowledge and direct brand training from the brands directly through the software that we provide them with. And then it really has to be seamless so that the customer can seamlessly purchase wherever they want. So it could be in store, it could be back online, it could be 5 days later after they've thought about the purchase a little bit more. And so when you put those elements together, you can really deliver on the value proposition of what the consumer comes to retail for, but also why the brands want to come to retail.
So I want to draw you all into this conversation a little bit more with this poll that we have, because I think David touched on a good point. So you guys, so we can put up the poll while we wait. Is there anything that you would only feel comfortable buying at a physical store? So David, you said you guys are in the categories of electronics, fashion. Can you name some of the other ones?
Yep. So we're doing innovation, smart home and consumer electronics. We're also doing toys and STEM learning toys, and we're doing fashion and accessories.
And since you're talking with brands a lot and are just looking at the retail space in a special way, what other categories do you think is ripe for digital native brands to move into brick and mortar right now?
Yeah. So we look at categories where there could be a strong experiential element. But there's also, we think that the retail experience might be lacking versus what's out there in the market today, and there's an explosion in new brands. So we are very excited about the beauty space. Mm-hmm. We are very excited about CPG and all of the new sort of food and beverage brands that are coming out. I have a personal interest in I think pet retail is definitely a category that can be, I think, reinvented through experience. And we're starting to see some of this, right? And so we are constantly looking at opportunities to, whether it's through retail partnerships or brand partnerships or even opening our own concepts, to go out and bring an experiential marketplace model to a category that consumers love, that brands are investing in, but is missing an experiential retail element to it.
So with the poll that was just up, there is some, it's like, yes, that there's some things that you would only want to buy in a store. So when it comes to that, how do you know that once you get someone in a store, you're actually giving something that they want, it's the right experience? Because we hear that word floating around a lot in retail. It's like, let's have experiences. But how do you know that's the right one for a certain brand?
Yeah, I mean, I can probably comment a little bit on that because, Leap, we develop and we operate stores for our brand partners, right? So we're more so on the infrastructure side. Nobody really knows who we are. We're, we power the stores. But as it relates to what really resonates with the customer, right? What type of experience do you want to create? It's a big kind of array, or there's big bookends of what can actually happen inside of a store to create the right experience for the customer, from, events that take place on a daily basis, weekly basis, all the way to the other end of just amazing customer service that really can engage the customer, immerse them in the brand, and actually present to them why the brand is unique, right? So in the middle, right, it's incredibly important in this new way of sort of experiential-based retail that you've got a customer service team that really, can understand, how a consumer wants to shop in a passive or in an active way, right? In general, you can ask a couple leading questions around, what are you looking for, or, a couple questions that you can extract information on understanding whether or not the consumer needs to be helped or not. And then you can sort of dive in a little bit deeper. And generally, in experiential-based retail, the way we think about it is generally people are shopping for brands or products that they inherently need to touch, feel, experience, or they're doing discovery, right? A lot of the commodity things that we see actually in being the future of retail is that a lot of commodity items we believe people will just continue to buy online, right? Click a handful of buttons on Amazon, you can have it shipped to your door the next day. But as it relates to discovery and premium and these growth brands, you kind of want to immerse them in all the things that Danielle was talking about, right? Like, what is the ethos? What are the foundations? What are the purpose of these brands? There's a lot of amazing new sustainability brands. And so that's the second fold of how we really, want our in-store associates to engage with customers, right? Immersing them in the overall brand, right? What makes it unique? What's the unique selling proposition of it? So that's kind of how we think about experiential retail. Of course, it has to do an amazing job. The store has to do an amazing job from a sensory perspective, touching all the 5 senses, so on and so forth. But there's big bookends on what experiential actually means. Right?
And when it comes to sensory experience, what does that look like? Is there an example, just so we all understand what you mean by that?
Sure. I'll just say first quickly. I think when you think about experiential retail, I think it's new and it's ever evolving. And so, Potter Stewart has this quote, I know it when I see it. And I think experiential retail is a great example of something that you kind of know when you see it. We have tried to put some touchstones and some benchmarks around it, the 4 that I mentioned. I'll give you an example. We have in our beta stores, it is about having the product out of the box. One of the categories that we've had a lot of success in bringing brands to market is rideables. And so you can jump on you can put a helmet on, sign a waiver, and then jump on a rideable, and you can test that, right, before you ever buy. You just can't do that online, and you can't do it in a lot of other retail environments. Another example, we are part of we operate a marketplace within a sort of a wellness and relaxation experience at Hudson Yards called Eden. Within that marketplace is a whole bunch of different products to kind of help you, like wellness products and consumer care products. And so that experience actually has showers. So you can test consumer care products in the shower, personal care products in the shower. Now, like many of you, I'm not probably going to take a shower in a mall. But the point is that we're constantly trying to push the envelope on what experiences customers are willing to go into, so that we can try to find the right ones that we can ultimately scale for all kinds of brands.
How many people take a shower there a day? Just curious.
Well, okay. The good news is that, I mean, one of the things we offer to brands, right, that come into our marketplaces, whether it's at Macy's or Toys R Us or within our own stores, is we do anonymously track the way the consumers move through the space. And we do that because we want to share with the brands how the consumer's shopping. And it looks a lot like the way everyone tracks the way people behave through websites. The good news is we don't track who goes in the showers.
Fair enough. Fair enough. And Daniella, you're in the space of owning your brand, your company, and you've taken two routes. You've done the wholesale, which means you're selling in Nordstrom, Bloomingdale's, but you've also had pop-up shops.
Yep.
What's the advantage to having both, and what's kind of the drawbacks?
Yeah, I think that there are really benefits and positives to doing and trying both. And we really, again, believe in having a robust set of distribution channels for any brand. With wholesale, one of the real benefits is that we benefit from a third party that really adds validation to our brand. We still consider ourselves a younger, newer, fresher brand. There are a lot of people who still don't know who BaubleBar is, or they've heard about us or read about us on one or two different digital channels or in a magazine, but they haven't yet, made the leap to try us. And I think walking through a store like a Nordstrom, where you've been shopping for many, many years and that you really trust as an organization, having their stamp of approval is something that has a really big impact for a brand like ours. We often refer to it as third-party validation. So, I think being able to have that third-party validation with consumers, whether it is coming from press and PR, whether it's coming from influencer marketing, or whether it's coming from a big retailer like a Nordstrom, all of those parties have spent years building a tremendous amount of trust with their communities and with their audiences. So by associating with them, we really benefit from that as a brand. We poll our customers all the time, and we frequently hear from people who say either, as a big fan of the brand, shop with you online all the time, but for days where I just need something right away, I really love that I can go into my local Nordstrom or my local Bloomingdale's and just pick something up. And then we also hear from a lot of people who say, I heard about you guys, I was so curious, I went to the website, I thought it looked great, just didn't buy, and then I went into Nordstrom and I tried it on, and I loved it, and I came on the site and I bought 5 more things. So I think having all of those different experiences that play off of each other are really important. As we, in the same way that when we look at our digital marketing channels, and we really spend a lot of time focusing on multi-touch attribution and thinking about all of the different touch points that a consumer has to have to ultimately make a purchase, we think of the offline world as really just an extension of that. It's just another channel, it's just another touch, it's just another opportunity to continue to build a relationship with that customer, because at the end of the day, I think it's very rare that you show somebody an ad and they're like, you got me, here I go, here's my money. You have to build that relationship. You have to get them comfortable with your brand and your product and what it is that you do. So offline is really an extension of that.
And I think conventional wisdom was that, opening a store, that is a large barrier of entry. You have to have the real estate, you have to just have the capital, all of those things. Is it in your perspective that barrier of entry is lower, since we're seeing so many digital brands enter the brick and mortar space?
Maybe. I think that there are more companies that are trying to make it easier for you to experiment with offline retail. I think that there are more companies that are helping you find temporary spaces, more companies that are helping you figure out how to do temporary fixturing, which is definitely hard. I can tell you when we did our first pop-up, this was in 2013, we were shocked to learn that renting furniture was the same price as just buying it. And we were like, I'm sorry, that actually doesn't make any sense, logically. But we, spent a lot of time thinking about, oh my God, renting it's gonna be the same price. Do we just buy it? If we buy it, where do we store it? It's not like storage in Manhattan is much cheaper than this whole rental price thing. So it was a whole thing that we were trying to figure out. And I think that a lot more companies have popped up to try to make it much easier for brands to be able to experiment with offline, which I think is a really useful and helpful thing. And then obviously, our first foray into the offline experience was through wholesale. I think that for a lot of newer, younger brands, people think wholesale is like a dirty word. If I do wholesale and I don't have full control of my brand, things are just gonna spiral out of control. And we really don't feel that way at all. We really think that a rising tide lifts all boats. We have amazing relationships with our wholesale partners. We love working with wholesale. And again, we see it as another, just another distribution channel that's part of the overall puzzle. And obviously the main benefit to wholesale is that, you don't have any of those upfront costs. And you get to learn from people who have been in this business for an extraordinary amount of years and really know a lot. We learned a tremendous amount about merchandising and fixturing and how to think about our physical offline spaces, because we learned pretty quickly that you have to think about those spaces very differently than you would think about the digital space. So before we, started to, make a bigger investment into offline, it's really helpful to have those learnings.
Right. And I want to talk about the big guys real quick, like the big retailers. It's a big retail earnings week. Macy's, Kohl's, JCPenney recently reported earnings. So since you guys are dealing in the digitally native brand space and moving to brick and mortar, what do you think those larger legacy retailers can learn from newer brands entering their space, essentially?
Yeah, I could go ahead. Just my quick thoughts on it. I mean, look, I think the way you guys are thinking about distribution is correct, right? I think you need to be methodical. You need to be calculated. You need to put your brand in the right locations that ultimately, maintain the integrity of the brand. But to your point of all boats rising, when the tide rises, I think it's an astute, comment, because look, you're building a consumer brand. You need to get into various different channels to build the awareness, build the credibility, drive LTV with the customer. And to your point around just physical manifestation of the brand, right? Wholesale versus direct, it is different, right? How you think about visual merchandising in your own four-wall experience, right? Or via a pop-up or a permanent store or inside of a big box retailer is different, right? And we actually, when we partner with brands, right, we kind of say, hey, brand, there was a Matt Scanlon who was speaking here earlier today, is one of our brands where we actually operate their stores for them. And, it's kind of like they want to be really good at building amazing product. They want to be really good at marketing their product and growing the distribution. They don't want to worry about, real estate risk management. They don't want to worry about the CapEx side of things like fixturing programs and proper lighting and proper, the other big piece is staffing and operating a store, right? I mean, it's no surprise there's crazy high attrition in the world with, retail associates. So anyways, what we've basically done is we've tried to abstract everything away and deliver it as a turnkey solution to the right brands that we underwrite. But nevertheless, I think to your question as it relates to what can big box learn from, kind of these growth brands as they think about their physical, right? Their physical direct to consumer, are a handful of things. I mean, you have to start with what have they been challenged by, right? And I think it's pretty clear that floor plates are way too big, right? People spend way too much money building their stores and way too much money operating their stores. Generally, the operating costs rise because the real estate and the floor plates are way too large. And then that requires a lot of inventory in those locations, right? So there's a lot of challenges around that model, and hence why a lot of these large retail apocalypse things have been happening. But nevertheless, small is the new big, experiential-based retail, immersing the customer and in the brand so they can ultimately drive word of mouth and LTV with the shopper. Those are kind of the top ones, right?
Great. So we have to end it. I think our takeaway is that we should go into stores, take showers, ride things. Can you guys help me thank the panelists today?
Thanks, guys.